Well, a pleasant good morning, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of the PR Man and the Coach talking ball of the Ballfather Podcast presented by Sportskeeda. I'm your longtime host, Reggie Roberts, former NFL Communications Executive. I'm joined by my super cool co-host, Coach Mike Smith, winningest coach in Falcons history. What's up, man? How we doing?
I'm doing great, Reg. Hey, enjoyed the draft. I hope everybody else did. It was pretty interesting, wasn't it?
I'm gonna just tell you this, okay? So, I'm in the middle of flux for moving and all this stuff, and we were having dinner last night, and there were these guys who were over there in the corner. That's 6 days after the draft, 4, 5, 6 days after the draft, and guys are debating. They're talking quarterbacks, they're talking defensive line, they're talking linebacker. So I walk over to one of the guys. I said, where you guys from? And we start talking to the guys as well. I'm from Buffalo. We're here for this conference. He said, you watched the draft? I said, yeah, I watched the draft. He said, I tell you what, he goes, I know the season just ended, but I tell you what, I watched every minute of every second of the draft. He said, it's the best thing on TV. Here it is, 6 days after the draft. These guys are still talking about it. You turn on the TV, Todd McShay's talking about it. Mel Kiper's talking about it. Stephen A. Smith's talking about it. I mean, people are still talking about it. And it happened, last Thursday? It's amazing.
It is, Reg. It's a non-game playing season, and the NFL's got it figured out. There's no doubt about it. They keep the interest, and when they came up with the draft programs that they've got now, the 3 days and the run up to it, it brings college football fans and NFL football fans together, and it's the only time that the big time college fans are really watching the NFL, because they're wanting to see, the Alabama fans want to see where their guys going. Georgia wants to see where theirs are. Texas, all the colleges. It just perks interest across the world, not just the United States.
The part that, to me, that was, and the league I thought the league did a really good job at this presentation in Kansas City. They brought out Kelsey, brought out Mahomes, got the fans all wrapped up in it. And then they kind of teased it a little bit during the telecast, and they said, oh, by the way, we got this other little announcement coming up in May 11th. We're going to release the schedule, which is also a huge thing for the team, the league, and next week. So I mean, there's all this stuff to look forward to. But let's kind of talk a little bit about the draft. There's all these winners and losers, and we don't have enough time to go over who won, who lost. But I thought it'd be interesting, Mike, to talk a little bit about the 4 teams that drafted duos, drafted 2 players, the 2 most impactful players, hopefully that they acquired. And I want to talk about the Texans, the Eagles, and the Seahawks and the Lions. Let's start with the Texans, in that they drafted, obviously, C.J. Stroud with the 2nd overall pick, and then they traded. They got a trade, and then they drafted Will Anderson Jr., who arguably is one of the top defenders in the country. Give me your thoughts on those 2 guys.
Well, I thought it was a brilliant move for the Houston Texans. They needed to do something and do something big. And the way you start off doing something big is you do it in the draft. And, to get C.J. Stroud with the number 2 pick, some people had him rated as the number 1 pick, including me. We've had the discussion.
Yep.
Time will tell. And then they trade with Arizona, and everybody knew Arizona was looking to move back. And they move right back up with the 3rd pick and take arguably the best edge player in Will Anderson from Alabama. So that set the tone for the Houston Texans for the rest of this year, up until they got to put the ball on the tee and play some football. But it's 2 great picks in my mind, and I think they're going to be good players. So time will tell, but that's the great thing about it. Time will tell.
Yeah. I just moved right along. I thought the Eagles had a nice day. I mean, the Eagles, they picked Jalen Carter. I was from a pocket, right, from where I'm living. Jalen Carter with the 9th overall pick, and then they picked up. They drafted Nolan Smith from I forget where he's from. He's a linebacker. They drafted him. Those 2 guys can play. Those are arguably Carter with all of his offseason stuff, but he's turn on the tape. He's a great player.
Oh, there's no doubt, and there's a trend going on with Howie Roseman and the SEC. As you mentioned, they take three from Georgia at number 9, number 30, and number 105. And 4 of the 7 came from the SEC, Alabama or Georgia. And that's something that they did last year as well. So, they're going right deep into where football is played. Probably the best high school football and the best college football there in the Southeast. And you got to say that's probably one of the top 3 drafts this season. I don't think there's any doubt. Now, Reg, I got to tell you this. I saw where somebody rated Indy as a top 3, and that's one of the things that everybody's got their opinion and they can talk about it this time of the year, but I thought that was a real stretch, a big time stretch. No disrespect to Indianapolis. One of the good things that they did is they got 12 picks out of 7 rounds. So they did some moving, but I'm not too sure about the quarterback. I really think time will tell. He's a 1-year starter. He's a freak athlete, but that was Indy being Indy since they've been looking for a quarterback for the last 5 or 6 years. They've searched and searched and searched, and now they're going to go with a great athlete, guy that doesn't have a whole lot of wear on his tires, but he doesn't have a whole lot of experience as well. I have to bring that one up because I saw that. I agree with Houston. I agree with Philadelphia, and then I saw a top 3 as Indy being number 2, and I thought, man, that's way out there. But everybody gets to talk about it, and everybody gets to rate it. But one other thing, Reg, that I want your opinion on. They grade these guys. They grade these teams A, B, and C, D, E, and F. You know what? Nobody gets worse than a C. How can that happen?
I will tell you how it happens. What happens is, guys, GMs and specifically GMs have a very, very sensitive. They're very sensitive to opening up the paper or reading online, and they see that, someone like Peter King or somebody like Jim Trotter or Steve Weiss, guys who are obviously friends of ours, who grade these drafts. And if your owner sees that you've given a guy a C or, an incomplete, those guys read that stuff. And and it means nothing. It absolutely means zero. From the time the editors press the button and put it out there, it means nothing. But those guys are real sensitive. So that's why the sensitivity. But I want to go back to Anthony Richardson just for a second. I can remember when he came out. You talk about tread on the tire. Hell, his tires have still like the plastic on it, for crying out loud, because they only played 13 games. He only played 13 games. So it's like when you go buy tires, they pull them out of the plastic. He's young, he's raw. But here's where I give him a little bit of latitude, because there's two. I think Shane Steichen, the new coach in Indianapolis, is really awesome. Is he going to become the new John McVay? Does he become the new quarterback whisperer? Time will tell. But I think you got to kind of like his track record. He's built a little bit of a track record in that, he coached Justin Herbert, who's a really good performer, solid starter for the Los Angeles Chargers. I didn't realize that till I read it last night. Okay. He also coached Jalen Hurts, and we know the story of Jalen Hurts. Took the Eagles to the Super Bowl, just got a gigantic contract a couple of weeks ago. So we know the story. So the guy's got a little bit of a track record for being able to be creative and flexible and adapt his style to fit what the guy does. This guy's got a little bit more of an issue with Anthony Richardson, because Jalen Hurts has a certain skill set. Justin Herbert has a certain skill set. This guy Richardson is a little bit of a freak athletically, but the 13 starts, the 58.5% completion percentage scare me. Can he develop? Can he make him into a quarterback? Maybe. Time will tell. But none of us know that just yet. We don't know that.
No, we don't. And again, I tell you, that's Indy being Indy. There's, that's to me, it's kind of a wild card pick. And Mr. Irsay has done that numerous times in his career. And they've won a Super Bowl now. Of course, they had a great quarterback in Peyton.
Yeah, they did.
They did. You can't take that away from them. But we'll wait and see what happens there. It's going to be very interesting.
You're on with the PR man, the coach, talking ball on the Ballfather Podcast, presented by Sports Keto. The other two, finish it up to the duos. Seattle took quarterback Devin Witherspoon from Illinois, and then they signed the Ohio State receiver I can never say his last name. We'll just go Jackson Smith. They got in. Those two guys are good players, so they had a nice day. And I think, but the one that I want to kind of get your opinion on, Mike, is the Lions. I'm cheering for the Lions. I like Dan Campbell. I like the toughness that they've established. I like what he's trying to get done in his program. They drafted running back Jahmyr Gibbs, which I thought at that high was a little bit of a stretch for the running back. And I know you got some thoughts on the running back spot. And then they drafted linebacker Jack Campbell, who's a good player as well. What's your thoughts on drafting that running back there at that high?
Well, I think it's trending where running backs, as we've been saying, they're not valued like they used to be. And I believe since 2000, I think there's only been 50 running backs taken in the first round. So, that's one or two, on average. This year we had two. Is it early? Some people are going to say it, Reg, that it is, because what's happened in the trend right now is go ahead, get your running back, and after one contract, you might tag them. There's occasionally they get tagged, but usually they're gone to another team. I mean, if you look at what's happened in the running back position here of late, there were 3 guys in the last 5 years that have been drafted in the first round. Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, and Christian McCaffrey. All 3, only one of them is with the same team. Fournette's been at 3 teams now. Christian McCaffrey was traded, and Barkley's been tagged. Financially, it's a good play right now for everybody to go ahead and draft one, knowing that you're going to get rid of him. He's not going to be on your team in 3 years, and you're just going to go sign somebody else that did the same thing that you've done. So, it's interesting. Now, I want to say this about, Atlanta took a first-round pick in the draft this year. And I think that young man from Texas is he's a very good player. Very good player. And on some boards, he was the highest rated player, but he plays the running back position. But he's got some flexibility, and I think Atlanta's got a plan for him. Atlanta doesn't have a quarterback, but they've got a bunch of what I call queens on the chessboard.
I remember that. We talked about that. I know that. I know that term.
Yeah. So, they've got Kyle Pitts, who can play tight end, and he can play wide receiver. They've got the wide receiver that can play running back.
Patterson.
Yes, Patterson. So they've got 2 guys, and now they take their new addition. He can play running back, and I think he'll be able to line up out as a wide receiver. And that can really give defensive coordinators a problem. Not saying that they're going to do that, but they've got 3 queens right now on their chessboard. And that's going to give them an advantage if they want to take it, if they want to take advantage of, hey, let's hide these guys. Like, he may be a running back. He may line up at wide receiver. We may have no running backs in the game, or we can line up and put Pitts as a typical tight end. So it'll be interesting to see. I thought it was a good pick. I did that it was too early, but that's it. Reg, I also want to mention to you, and we've had these discussions through the years. Everybody gets excited about, the draft and how deep it is. You really look at, what teams really need to look at is how deep is the first round? How many sure enoughs are there? Is it 6? Is it 8? Is it
9?
10? Yeah. And if you have 12 sure enoughs that everybody agrees on, that's a deep draft. Once you get past the second round, it's a crapshoot, and it's a 50-50 proposition in the first round. So this year, I think there were probably about 8 sure enoughs, and there were probably 2 or 3 that went in the top 10 that people are scratching their head at. Yeah. It's not a consensus.
Just to go back to your point about what we think the Falcons could do with the three chess pieces on their board, 3 queens on their board. When you really think about that from a defensive perspective, defensive coordinators are going to have to guard every blade of grass on that field if you got all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time. Are you kidding me? You don't know where they're going to line up, and that is a problem.
That's right. They may, and they can start out lining up as a wide receiver, motion back into the backfield, motion 2 of them back in there. Tight ends moves back to his normal position, and you've got an old-fashioned 21 personnel, and you might have 7 DBs out there on the field. Yeah, so I thought it was a good move, and it'll be interesting to see how they're gonna put that all together there in Atlanta.
It really will be watching. It really will be worth watching how they scheme it up and what they do. It really will be fun to watch.
It will, and when you don't have a franchise quarterback like they're going through right now, this is a way that maybe they can be able to move the ball and cause problems for other defenses and other especially the other teams in the NFC South.
Y'all with the PR man, the coach talking ball on the Ballfather Podcast presented by Sports Heated. Mike, let's talk about the dominance of the SEC in the draft as always. I mean, I looked at it and I thought two of the first 3 picks, 4 of the first 9, 5 of the first 10, 6 of the top 12, and 7 of the first 14 picks were players that played at SEC schools. I see the trend continuing, but because the SEC obviously is the most dominant conference in football. The Big Ten had, I think the SEC and the Big Ten were tied for first with 9 picks each, which was good. But the SEC continues to dominate the draft in the draft.
Absolutely, the number 1 conference in college football will continue to be with the additions of Oklahoma and Texas, and who knows what the future holds in terms of if they're going to go to even a bigger conference,
right?
The super conference, which is going to basically be the SEC.
Right.
What is it? Right. 15 out of the last 17 years, I think they've had. It's complete dominance, and they win national championships right and left, and I think it's just going to continue. It's by far the most productive conference for NFL players, but it's also the best college conference in the country from top to bottom, and will continue to be that.
Philadelphia Eagles agree with you based on what they're doing.
And Howie's he's an SEC alum. He played or didn't play. Howie didn't play, but Howie went to the University of Florida. He's an alum of the Florida Gators, and we'll see. Reds, there was some trades in the first round too. I don't remember what the over/under was, but I think there were 7 in the first round. So there was wheeling and dealing going.
Yeah. The interesting thing about the interesting thing about the Eagles, Sirianni was talking. There was an article I read about Sirianni. He had Roseman had gone down to UGA's pro day. He gets back to the Eagles offices in South Philly, and he says to him, he said, anything cool happening? Anybody you like down there, Georgia? He said, yeah, the entire defense. I want everybody out there. I want the entire defense.
Yeah, they're deep.
Hey, listen, and look, listen. The Eagles' defense is quickly becoming Georgia's defense.
Yes,
when you look at it, because they got 3 of Philly's top 5 draft picks from this season where Georgia played at Georgia, like you mentioned, the Jalen Carter, the linebacker, and the Kelly Ring corner, who you read the scouting report on that guy. They said they were saying, well, he can't play specific, but he's long. He's 6'2", 6'3", long arms, picks off the ball. You can line him up in the slot corner. I mean, and then last year they drafted two of Philly's top 3 picks were on defense. Defensive tackle Jordan Davis and linebacker Nakobe Dean. So something's going down in Clark County that they like. Something's going on.
Absolutely. Hey, they've got it going on, and I think the first round too, Reg, when you look at it, we got to talk about, was it any different than the norm in terms of position? And I saw a little bit of a trend. Your 3 quarterbacks went in the first round.
Yep.
2 running backs, which was probably a big surprise. And then there was that run in the middle of the first round with 4 wide receivers. I think it started out like 16 or 18 where they came out. And then you had 5 offensive tackles. And everybody's trying to find that guy to protect the guy that throws the ball. And and I don't think it was a deep draft in the offensive tackle position, but those guys like quarterbacks, they're going to go early. But what I don't know if it surprised you, but it really surprised me in the first round, 7 edge defenders, defensive ends four defensive tackles, only one linebacker, and then 4 corners. And if you really look at it and you start looking at the tag numbers, the quarterback, of course, number 1 tag, but when you start talking about on offense, it's quarterback, left tackle, wide receiver. On defense, it's edge, and corners. You got to be able to rush the passer, and you got to be able to cover. And that trend's going to continue, and you're going to start seeing, I think, more and more corners being drafted, because you're going to start seeing 5, could potentially have 5 corners on the field at one time. This game keeps going like it's going and keeps opening up, and they spread the field.
I think that's a great call, Mike, because I think that's going to happen, because based on the news that took place in New York this week with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this, but every time you go to the Jets Instagram page, or you turn on ESPN, there's a highlight of Aaron already throwing the ball. I mean, he's out there. They had the press conference. They had a workout that day. He's throwing the ball to guys. It's all over their website. It's all over Instagram of him, him throwing the ball and stuff. So yeah, you're right. That trend is going to continue. But just to finish up the thought about the SEC, how about this note? Alabama is the first school since 1967 to produce the first offensive player drafted and the first defensive player drafted in the same draft since 1967. That's absolutely insane when you think about it. Okay, when you think about it, I mean, Bryce Young gets to Carolina in front of, I think there were 20,000 people in the parking lot at the stadium when he got there. He got Pepper's out there, he's hugging him, he's got the pom-poms going. The wife's out there, she's hugging. They got bands playing, they got cheerleaders jumping. The excitement is through the roof there. And you know what? He looks like he's about 14 years old. He really does. I'm praying for him. Everybody says great things about him, how good a kid he is. But the key piece of it is they're excited in that part of the world. Everybody's excited now about their team. Everybody's going to the Super Bowl. We got this guy. We got Will Anderson. So I tell you what, the timing of the draft, and the league does a tremendous job in this. The timing of the draft right after the Super Bowl, you'd say, if you were a betting man, you said the health of the league, the health of the game, and the health of the league is pretty good right now.
Absolutely. Look at the new numbers that came out in terms of when they add the streaming and stuff to the numbers of the Super Bowl this year. You and I had this conversation early in the week. It just went through the roof.
115 million people watched the Super Bowl on February 12th. 115.1 people. And that eclipsed the previous number 3 years ago. I'm sorry, 2015 when the Seahawks beat the Patriots. It's absolutely insane how big the game has gotten. And like you and I have talked about offline, people, it's not your father's NFL. People consume the game differently, differently now than they did 15, 20 years ago. And we'll talk about, we'll create a whole new podcast to talk about how people watch it.
Not 15 years ago, 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Five years ago.
It's amazing in terms of the number of eyeballs and the way that they are creating ways to connect and touch new fans in football. And a lot of it has to do, as we mentioned, we should have a big, deep conversation about all the online betting and all the fantasy football. Brilliant. That's why the NFL is probably as healthy as it's ever been.
Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you what. Listen, I know we got to get you going because you got some stuff you got to go do. We will reconvene in a week or so because there's a lot of stuff coming up with regards to the off-season workouts, the rookie mini camps, the team mini camps, the schedule releases, which is always one of my favorite events that the league does because then at that point, to me the season is just that much closer. There's matchups. You see who's going to be having to travel, who's playing on Thanksgiving, who's playing the day after Christmas. That whole schedule is, to me, it might not be as exciting as the draft, but it's a pretty big day, especially when you're inside the team facilities. It's a pretty big day when that damn schedule comes out.
Oh, is it, Reg? And as you know, I think it's a little bit more concrete when you start talking about the schedule, and then you're talking about these draftable players, because half these guys that got drafted aren't going to make it. When you play a game, you're going to play a game on that date. God willing, and the creek don't rise. You're going to play that day, and you know when it's going to happen, and you're going to know, is it in the middle of a 3-game road trip, or is it, or is it coming off? Is it getting somebody coming off of a bye? There's a whole lot of conversations that go on right after the schedule, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to make predictions, just like we talk about the draft. We'll be able to talk about the schedule, and it's going to be here before you know it.
Yeah, so I think it's a week from tomorrow. May 11th, they release the schedule. May 11th.
Yeah, Reggie, they got the timing of it down.
It's unbelievable. It really is. And they teased to it at the draft. They talked about it at the draft. They were talking about it on the. I think Mike Greenberg interviewed Commissioner Goodell, and he kind of mentioned there we're in the final stages, wrapping up with the network, so we're going to do it, and they teased to it. So that they've got it all. They got all buttons working, which will be good. Yeah. But listen, we'll let you go out there and go do your thing, and we'll be on the Ballfather Podcast next week, and we'll talk about the schedule and all the other upcoming things coming up during the non-playing season of the NFL.
You got it, buddy.
All right, man. Take care. Have a good day.
Yep. Take care.
All right, thanks. Bye.